Summer Maelstrom by Kitsunro 16, Chapter 3, Dreams and Mission to Wave. Deep in the crimson depths of the forever fall forest, two people can be seen sitting under the shade of one of the many red-leafed trees. The two sat rather close as one was leaning rather heavily on the other, and their hands were intertwined between them. One of the figures, a male with spiked blond hair and blue eyes, rested his head on top of the other's darkening locks. The other, a female with black and as night hair and currently closed eyes that matched the color of their environment, leaned against his shoulder. Surrounding the duo was the fading bodies of various species of grim. You know, most girls would like to be taken to a fancy restaurant or go on a nice picnic as a date. The male spoke. Well, I'm not like most girls, the girl reasoned with her eyes still closed. Yes, you made that abruptly clear when concussed that poor man when you thought he was leering at you. The man deadpanned a nod that the female noticed with her eyes still being closed. You would have done the same had you been there yourself. She huffed as she opened her eyes to look at the blonde. I shut up. See? He sighed. You still haven't told me why you took me here. He looked around him to the nearly faded bodies of the grim. Other than the obvious, what's on your mind, Raven? And what makes you think I have anything to tell you, Naruto? The blonde gave her a flat look. Because ripping off the skull of a beowulf and shoving it up the ass of an Ursa is not normal behavior, even for you. Raven sighed. Well, you know we've been dating for 2 years now, right? Of course, our anniversary is in 2 weeks. He raised an eyebrow. What of it? Yes, well, you see, the thing is, during those 2 years, we've done some stuff. Both brows were now raised, the usual composed and mature badass Raven Brown when stuttering. Huh. What about it? A teasing smirk across his lips. Still upset you can't keep up? No, the girl nearly shouted as a blush graced her cheeks. I mean, not that. I was talking about the results of you finishing inside. Naruto went a healthy shade of red. Yeah, I know what's supposed to happen after yeah, but I thought you were on the pill. He finished slightly confused. Well, I guess you're more fertile than you thought. Okay, I may have forgotten last time. So that means Naruto trolled off, wide-eyed, when the Crimson-Eyed girl nodded. They then fell into a terse silence. Huh, he finally sounded. I guess that explains the mood swings. Raven stared up at him incredulously. That's all you have to say? What? You thought I would be upset about it? Naruto shrugged. I'll admit that I'm surprised, but I'd never leave you for something like this. I know that I don't have much, or anything really, experience in parenthood, but I won't let you do this on your own. I'll be there every step of the way. As added emphasis, he grabbed the distressed girl and hugged her tightly. Raven sucked in a single sharp breath at the determination in his voice. He was serious about this. He wouldn't abandon her to raise a baby on her own. She sighed and buried her head further into the blonde's embrace as a massive weight lifted off her shoulders. Of course he wouldn't. This was Naruto she was talking about. He would never leave a friend or anyone to fend by themselves in their time of need. It was one of the characteristics that attracted her to him in the first place. A sudden thought entered her mind, and she nearly had a panic attack. Raven bolted up, breaking the tender hug, and stood up to pace. Naruto, meanwhile, looked on in bewilderment at the sudden mood change. What's wrong? Did I do something to make you upset? His tone matched his confusion, and Raven caught it. No, you didn't do anything wrong. She was quick to reassure him. It's just, she sighed and ran a hand through her dark locks. What are we going to tell the team? Am I going to have to leave Beacon? How will we find the support to raise a child? Naruto went wide-eyed at the question and paled as another one came to mind. What is Crow going to do? His words caught Raven's attention, and her panic nearly doubled before she calmed slightly when she thought about it. Crow won't be a problem. I'll talk to him. What about the rest? She said. What about Summer? She added. She wanted to add, but the thought better of it. Naruto, being the oblivious idiot he is, did not know about the Rose's feelings despite being friends for so long. Besides, she thought to herself, she already lost her chance. He's mine now. Her mind halted when two arms wrapped around her waist and brought her in close. We'll handle the others together, okay? Naruto whispered into her ear soothingly. Raven relaxed into his arms and leaned her head back onto his shoulder while putting her hand atop of his. Right. Together, she agreed. Raven lingered in his arms a moment longer before she spun out of his grip, grabbed Naruto by his arm, swept his feet out from under him, and sat on his chest. Naruto groaned at the sudden movement and looked at the raven-haired girl questionably. She did not say anything, but began to lean over from her position on him and gave the blonde a coy smile as her dark tresses curtained their faces from the outside. Now, before we do all that, I believe this is the first time we've been alone in over a week, and I think it's about time you scratched a certain itch of mine. The way she spoke and the feeling of her breath tickled his ear and was nearly enough for Naruto to lose control. However, he put a tight lid on his hormones and said, if a bit strained, are you sure you want to do it here? Raven's smile did not diminish in the slightest as she began to nibble on his earlobe. Why? Her voice sent shivers down his spine and caused his eyes to darken with lust. It's not like we haven't done it outside before. Besides, I think it's kinda hot. Naruto, having already been at his limit, lost it when she moved her hips down and grounded down on his groaning bulge, sitting upon flesh. His lips devoured hers, and her crimson jacket was torn off her shoulders. Bit hasty, aren't you? Raven noted with a smirk as they broke the kiss to take a breath. You know, if I didn't know any better, I would think you only wanted me for my body. The blonde chuckled. Of course not. I love you for you, though. His hands drifted down to her backside and gave it a firm squeeze. This is just an added bonus. Raven struggled to hold in her moans under his ministrations. She eventually gave in and attempted to muffle herself by using his mouth. Breaking away once more, the brown one spoke softly. Naruto blinked when the girl cut off abruptly, and her expression changed from one of affection to one of shock. Feeling warm liquid run down the front of his shirt, he glanced down and felt his heart stopped. Sticking through her stomach was a pale hand with black veins running along it, covered in blood. Still in shock, he almost didn't hear it when Raven tried to speak again. Run! Looking up from the hand shortly, Naruto stared at the girl in disbelief, then shock as crimson eyes turned silver and traces of red bled into the ends of her hair. You have to get out of here, Naruto. Before he could do or say anything in protest, her body burst into black smoke and scattered in the wind. Oh, what? Naruto choked out, still not being able to comprehend. All at once, the forest around him vanished and was replaced by an endless black void. Foolish little boy. A soft voice with a well-vicious undertone spoke seemingly from all around him. Did you really think you could escape me? Who are you? Naruto shouted. What do you want from me? The voice laughed sinisterly. You know exactly who I am, boy. The feelings of a hand under his chin and the image of red eyes with black sclera entered his mind, Rage instantly overcame him. You! What the fuck do you want? How are you in my head? Naruto demanded. The voice laughed mockingly. All will be answered in due time. For now, you should wake up. I believe your teacher has things to discuss with you. What do you mean, in due time? Answer me! He shouted angrily, but it was too late. He could already feel himself regaining consciousness as his dream world faded away. Naruto's eyes snapped open and he bolted upwards from his position lying down. He put a hand over his face as a massive headache overcame his senses. The rage from his dream, or was it a nightmare, faded from a burning inferno to an insistent buzz at the back of his mind. Pulling his hand away from his head, Naruto blinked at the liquid covering his palm. Tears? He thought to himself. A quick swipe to his cheeks showed him that there was still more coming out, and the burning in his eyes revealed to him that it had been doing so for a while. Yo, it seems you're awake now, huh, Naruto? The blonde was startled by the sudden noise, then turned sharply to his side while hastily wiping at his face. Sitting up in his bed, reading a small orange book, was Kakashi. His signature face mask still covered the lower part of his face, but his forehead sat on a small table beside him. His left eye remained closed, as to not unnecessarily waste chakra, and his remaining open eye drifted to his student lazily. I expect you to wake up much sooner, but I guess that mark of yours took more out of you than I thought. He shrugged uncaringly. Just goes to show what happens when you use a power you don't have any experience for. Naruto blinked as the memory of what happened came to him. Remembering the way he lost control, he cursed himself mentally. Kakashi-sensei, I'm sorry, The Jonin raised a hand, cutting him off. It's fine. While I did not say it, it was implied to come to me with the intent to kill. You just happened to get closer than the others, he said simply before his expression hardened. However, you need to get a hold of those emotions, Chunin Uzumaki. If you lose control like that in a real fight, then it's possible for your anger to be taken advantage of. You wouldn't want to leave Yang fatherless, would you? He asked rhetorically. Naruto looked down into his hands in guilt and frustration. I know. He clenched his fist in his lap. I know, but it's just so hard. Every time I think of her, I just. Kakashi sighed, seeing the state his student was in. You know, the silver haired man spoke, catching Naruto's attention. You're not alone in this. You have friends to talk to and help you, not to mention a family. He gestured next to the blonde, confusing him momentarily before he felt the sensation of something small laying against his side and a hand resting on his thigh. Naruto looked down to see the sleeping faces of Summer and Yang. The Rose was seated in a chair next to his bed and was resting her head in one arm while reaching out to him with the other. Yang, on the other hand, was attempting to use him as a body pillow, and her arms and legs wrapped tightly around his side. They've been here since yesterday, you know, Kakashi said when he saw Naruto finish his observations. How long was I out? Don't know. I just woke up myself, but if I had to guess, I would say it's probably been a little over a day. Naruto was shocked. A full day? Just how much did his new powers take out of him? I see you're starting to realize the consequences of your actions. Naruto nodded solemnly. Good. Kakashi gave his signature eye smile. The sooner you understand this, the better you'll become. The blonde fell into contemplative silence while Kakashi turned back to his book. The room was quiet except for the occasional perverted giggle that emanated from the silverette. Something the Jonin said earlier suddenly registered in his mind. Wait, Chunin? Kakashi looked up from his book sheepishly. Ah, you caught that. I was actually hoping you missed it. Come on, Kakashi-sensei, weren't you the one who always told me to look underneath the underneath? Yes, but I never thought you actually listened to me back then. Hey, I know I was bad when I was younger, but I'm much more mature now, the blonde pointed out. Kakashi deadpanned at him. What? I am? The deadpan did not leave his face, and Naruto pouted while crossing his arms childishly and turned to his side. You could have at least been a little nicer about it, Datebayo, the silver-haired Jonin chuckled. You're not doing a good job at telling him otherwise, you know. Naruto looked down, a bit startled at the sleepy face of Summer Rose. The blonde gave her a betrayed look as the Rose smirked at him. Not you too, Naruto disappearingly as Kakashi and Summer both chuckled at his misfortune. The laughter died down after a moment. So how do you feel? The silver-eyed girl spoke, her voice laced with concern. The blonde shrugged. Other than feeling slightly drained, I'm completely fine. Good, the Rose smiled at him, because that means I can do this. Her smile flipped, and she slapped him sharply in the back of his head. Oh, what was that for, Summer? Where'd you go off on worrying us like that? She shouted slash whispered, startling the blonde. Did you not think about how we felt before you went all willy-nilly? In the background, Kakashi chuckled before the petite girl rounded on him as well. And you, what were you thinking when you used such a genjutsu on Naruto? If I didn't stop him, he could have seriously, if not fatally, injured you, she said, still using her loud whisper. Kakashi had the decency to look slightly sheepish, but he couldn't help but sweat drop. She reminds me too much of Kushina, he thought to himself as he watched her turn back to Naruto and continue to scold him. Eventually, Summer ran out of things to say and sat back down with a huff. Naruto, who was rubbing his tender head, saw this. He reached out and pulled the girl out of the chair and into his arms. She struggled briefly, but giving in to the blonde's stronger grip. Seeing as she stopped squirming, he began to rub her head softly. Sighing in content, the Rose let out a cute monya and snuggled further into the blonde's arms. I'm sorry, Naruto spoke finally. I didn't mean to worry you like that. Summer sighed, this time in exasperation. It wasn't just me you worried. It was Yang too. They both looked to the somehow still sleeping girl. Even if she didn't understand why, she still knew her father was upset. She wouldn't let anybody but me touch her or feed her, and she absolutely refused to leave your side. The Rose giggled slightly. She's definitely a daddy's girl. Naruto smiled fondly as his gaze never left the sleeping blonde, while Summer spoke and chuckled at the end. Yep, it would seem so. After that, the conversation ended, and the couple was silent as they reveled in one another's presence. Kakashi I smiled his students, still bonding moment, and went back to reading. Eventually, a nurse came by to check on them and saw that the two were awake. Leaving to inform Tsunade, the nurse soon returned with the blonde Hokage and was followed by Sakura, who glanced at the couple's position in slight envy before looking away before anyone noticed.
So the Sleeping Beauty's awake. It's about time. I was beginning to think it would never happen. Then I'd never be able to give you your surprise, Tsunade teased. You mean about me being a chunin? The blonde asked as her jaw dropped. Takashi accidentally told me. Why way to sell me out, Naruto? The mentioned Jonin said dully. The Uzumaki shrugged and Tsunade glared at the silverette. Really, Kakashi? She said dangerously. The man paid no heed to the senjutsu's tone, and merely I smiled. Oops, he said nonchalantly, causing the Hokage to smack a hand against her forehead and drag it down her face. Whatever, she sighed, since you already know and everyone's here, I guess I can tell you. All the initiates of the room gave the blonde woman a questionable look. Tell us what, Granny? It was Naruto who voiced what they were all thinking. Team 7 has a new mission. This surprised them all. What, so soon? We just got back, Naruto whined. Normally I would let you wait a few days in order for you to settle in, but this is rather urgent. Sasuke Uchiha has been spotted by our spies to the edge of water country. He has been seen accompanied by three others who seem to work with or under him. Your mission is to travel to there and confront the rogue Uchiha and his associates before an attempt to negotiate them in order to bring him back. If he refuses, you are authorized to use force, lethal if necessary. Tsunade informed them. She looked around to see if anyone would protest her last statement and saw that, other than Sakura's slight hesitation, they were all determined. Good. She turned to Naruto and Summer. I have arranged for Suzune to look after Yang while you two are away. All of you will be packed and prepared to move out of the village gates in 2 hours. Dismissed. With her part said, the female Hokage turned on her heel and left the room. Sakura quickly followed. Kakashi snapped his book shut and got off his bed. Guess I'll be on my way as well. See ya, he said cheerfully before he vanished in a swirl of leaves, leaving the room. Three, if you count Yang, alone. Summer met Naruto's blue eyes and spoke worriedly. Are you sure you're ready to fight your old teammate? Naruto nodded without hesitation. Yes, I maybe considered him a friend before, but Sasuke has already chosen his path when he betrayed me in order to fulfill his goals of revenge. Besides, I have a new family and even more friends. I don't need him, and if he attempts to harm anyone I consider family, I will not hesitate to end him, he said, while choice grew dark at the end. The rose shook her head in agreement, and he intends to shove another lightning-covered fist through your chest, and I'll shove my swords accidentally down his throat. Hmm, Naruto hummed with a raised eyebrow. Getting a little protective, aren't you? Summer rolled her eyes as someone has to. You always seem to have trouble looking after yourself after all. She giggled before she yelped when she felt a pinch in her side as she glared at the Uzumaki as he looked away with fox innocence. A mischievous smirk suddenly crossed her lips, and she reached up to his face and scratched his whiskered cheek slightly. Instantly Naruto melted at her touch and began to make odd purring little noises of content. You're evil. He glared at her weakly. Summer simply smiled cheekily. I know. Then she leaned down and silenced any more protest by kissing him deeply. At the entrance gate of Konoha, if one were to look, they would see five people watching a touching yet highly amusing scene of a father fretting over leaving his daughter behind. Do you have the diapers? Yes. What about food? Is there enough of that? Yes. My scroll number in case you need to contact me. Wait, what? She doesn't know what a scroll is, Naruto, Jiraiya said from the side. Naruto rounded on him and shouted, I thought you told them everything. He waved his arms comically. I might have left out a few details, the white-haired man shrugged. It's fine. If anything happens, I'll still be here. Yeah, but Summer placed a hand on the blonde's shoulder, and after a silent battle of wills, he sighed in resignation. Fine, just take care of her, Shizune, pervy sage. Shizune nodded. Of course, I shall do my utmost best to keep her safe, she said determinedly. Naruto bowed his head in thanks before looking at the small plant in question. Her violet eyes locked up at him in sadness, and it nearly caused him to stay and say "fuck you" to the mission when the sight of her watery orbs. Instead, he soldiered on and pulled her out of Shizune's arms and hugged her tightly. "You're gonna have to stay strong for Daddy, okay?" he said softly. "I'll be right back, and after I kick the bastard's ass." Yang nodded and looked at her father in determination. "Daddy, kick ass!" she said, causing Naruto to laugh. However, that laughter stopped when multiple ominous auras washed over him. He chuckled nervously and put Yang back in Shizune's arms. "That's right, but Daddy really needs to go now before Daddy gets his ass kicked," Naruto said, still in the third person, causing the dark aura to increase, making his sweat drop down his face. "So, see you later. Gotta go. Bye." And then he was gone, racing out the gates with a cloud of dust trailing after him. He was soon followed by two more dust trails and twin shouts of "Naruto." The others watched this scene amused and turned to the last member of the team. Kakashi looked back at them for a moment before he closed his book and put it in his pouch. Tsunade spoke. "I've already informed you of the mission parameters, but there is something I would like to add. Be on the lookout for the Akatsuki. There's no doubt that they have heard about Naruto's return and is planning on going after him. With all the other Jinchuriki being captured or missing, it is safe to assume Naruto is next. Protect him at all costs. There is no telling what they have planned once they have captured all the tailed beasts." Kakashi shook his head affirmatively. "Understood. Good. Then you are dismissed." With that, the silver-haired Jonin was off, following the rapidly disappearing figures of his team. "You know they'll be fine, right?" Jiraiya said. "Despite what you might think, Naruto has matured in his time away. Parenthood does that to you, I know," Tsunade sighed. "I just can't help but get a bad feeling about this mission. Naruto doesn't exactly have the best track record, you know." "Just have a little faith," the man that Pervy said reassuringly. "I'm sure everything will be fine." The blonde sighed again. "I hope for his sake and Yang's that you're right." In an unknown location, deep within the confines of an unnaturally large cave, a giant earthen-colored humanoid entity with a decaying appearance, a body shaped into a robe, and a number of spiked-like protrusions on its back, set against the back wall at the farthest edge of the cave. Around its head was a blindfold covering its 9 eyes, 7 of which were open. Standing atop the figures of the statue's shackled hands were 6 holographic figures. "It seems the QB has finally returned. Now we may finalize our goals," said a man whose only visible distinct figures was his spiky hair and rippled like eyes. "About time the brat got back," another man spoke. A large sword can be seen poking over his shoulders. "I was beginning to think he had run away." The figure with the large tri-bladed scythe laughed insanely. "Now I can finally sacrifice the little fucker to Lord Joshin. Calm down, Hidan. I heard that the boy had amassed quite a bounty while he was away. I must have his head." "Shut the fuck up, Kakazu," Hidan yelled. "Nobody gives a shit about your stupid bounties, and nobody cares about your ridiculous sacrifices," Kakazu shot back. "That is enough, you two," the feminine voice interjected. "Now is not the time for your childish arguments. We have work to do. We must capture the Uzumaki, and we have to discover the whereabouts of the Hachibi as well." The man with the sword scoffed. "If I remember correctly, it was the immortal idiot's fault that the Eight Tails got away in the first place." "Oi, fuck you, Kisame," the Japanese yelled. "At least my partner is still alive." Kisame growled but said nothing in return. "Enough," the deep voice of the rippled-eyed man cut in. "Like Conan said, this is not the time to argue. Besides, I have already gathered the means necessary to capture the QB, and Setsu is currently working on uncovering the location of the Hachibi." "Oh," sounded Kisame. "And do you plan on sharing this amazing plan with the rest of us, oh great leader?" "That information is confidential," the leader of the Katsuki informed, the obvious sarcasm present in the swordsman's voice. "Right now you will travel to Nami no Kuni and meet up with your new partner." "New partner?" Kisame asked. "Who is it?" "Someone whom you are quite familiar with," the purple-eyed man said vaguely. Kisame grunted at the lack of intel, but nodded regardless. "The rest of you will remain on standby until you are told otherwise." "Dismissed." With that, the holograms began disappearing one by one until there was only one left. The swordsman only remained a moment longer before he too faded away. Opening his eyes, Kisame took in his surroundings. He was sitting on top of a large rock, in front of a river at the edge of a lush green forest. The area was rather peaceful, and it slightly irritated him. Scratching at his dark blue hair, the man spoke seemingly to no one. "So you got all that?" The air to the left of Kisame's shoulder rippled, and another man, with long black hair pulled back into a low ponytail and two bangs framing his face, appeared behind him. "Of course," the man confirmed him. "Despite it being vague, I was still able to gather the information necessary to report back. It still amazes me that you, of all people, would fake your death and betray the Akatsuki," Kisame said. "Besides, weren't you the one who kept going on about wanting to die by your precious little brother's hands?" "I have a debt to pay, so I can't afford to die right now, not even by my foolish little brother," the man said flatly. "Huh, you're one cold bastard, Itachi," the blue-skinned man smirked. "I have no idea what you're talking about," the Uchiha replied stoically. "Of course you don't," Kisame rolled his eyes. "Well," he said, beginning to stand up, "I guess it's time to get this new partner of mine," he said, putting extra emphasis on new partner. "Then I must take my leave as well," said Itachi. Kisame waved him off dismissively. Yeah, just go do your thing before I decide to give Samehada another taste of your chakra." Itachi was not intimidated in the slightest by the swordsman. Nonetheless, he decided it was time to take his leave. After all, while there wasn't much regarding future plans, he still had an important piece of information to report. Akatsuki was active again, and the first target was Naruto Uzumaki. End of chapter 3.